Neymar. The 2014 World Cup quarter-final between Brazil and Colombia delivered a catastrophic blow to the host nation's dream. In the 86th minute, with the score at 2-1, Brazil's superstar Neymar was driving forward when Colombian defender Juan Zuniga launched a forceful knee-first challenge into his lower back. The impact was immediately and visibly devastating. Neymar collapsed to the turf, screaming in excruciating agony and reportedly unable to feel his lower extremities. The entire stadium fell into a stunned, nervous silence as medical teams rushed on. Neymar was immobilised and stretchered off, a moment that instantly ended his tournament. The formal diagnosis delivered by the team doctor was a fracture of the L3 transverse process of the vertebra, a serious bone break requiring weeks of rest. Critically, physicians later confirmed that the fracture had occurred just 2 centimetres from causing irreversible spinal cord damage and permanent paralysis. This brutal injury not only concluded Neymar's World Cup bid, but dealt a mortal psychological blow to the squad. Forced to watch from a wheelchair, the national icon saw his teammates suffer the humiliating 7-1 defeat to Germany in the semi-final. The injury necessitated a conservative recovery plan spanning over a month and a half, transforming the face of the tournament and forever cementing the physical and emotional cost of a single reckless tackle. The career of Ronaldo Luis Nazário de Lima, O Fenomeno, was defined by 2 catastrophic knee injuries that tested the limits of medical science. The first major blow struck in November 1999 while playing for Inter Milan, resulting in a rupture of the patellar tendon in his right knee, sidelining him for 5 months. The true horror, however, unfolded on April 12th, just 6 minutes into his highly anticipated comeback against Lazio in the Coppa Italia final. Attempting a trademark step-over, Ronaldo's right knee violently gave out. He collapsed in agony, suffering a complete, explosive rupture of the patellar tendon, an injury so severe his own medical team described his kneecap shifting toward his thigh. The traumatic scene saw players from both teams visibly distraught as Ronaldo was stretchered off. Doctors were profoundly pessimistic, with some experts advising him that his career was effectively over. Ronaldo faced an agonising 18-month struggle, battling excruciating pain and the emotional toll of nearly 3 years of inactivity. Yet, through sheer willpower and relentless physical therapy, he completed what is arguably the greatest injury comeback in sports history. Defying all prognoses, Ronaldo returned to lead Brazil at the 2002 FIFA World Cup, where he won the Golden Boot and secured the championship, cementing his legendary status. Eduardo da Silva. The horrific injury suffered by Arsenal striker Eduardo da Silva is cemented in Premier League history as one of the sport's most distressing moments. On February 23rd, 2008, just 3 minutes into a match against Birmingham City, Eduardo sustained the injury following a challenge from defender Martin Taylor. The resulting damage to his left leg was catastrophic. He suffered compound fractures of the tibia and fibula, a double leg break, coupled with an open dislocation of the ankle. The injury's severity was so profound that broadcasters refused to show replays, and players from both teams were visibly distraught. Eduardo was ruled out for the remainder of the season, missing the Euros with Croatia and requiring immediate, complex surgery. After a year of intensive rehabilitation, Eduardo made his emotional first-team return on February 16, 2009, marking the occasion by scoring 2 goals in an FA Cup match. While the comeback was a triumph of resilience, he never fully regained the dynamic sharpness he possessed before the incident. The injury also had a dramatic effect on Arsenal's title bid that season, with the team's form collapsing immediately afterwards, suggesting a massive psychological blow to the squad. Owen Hargreaves. Owen Hargreaves' once brilliant career was tragically derailed by a prolonged and debilitating battle with chronic knee problems, a relentless physical challenge that ultimately limited him to just 39 appearances across his 4 years at Manchester United. The core of his issue was a severe, widespread loss of articular cartilage, the smooth, protective tissue essential for joint cushioning. This degenerative condition resulted in agonising bone-on-bone friction and persistent inflammation. Initial conservative treatments, physical therapy, and minor interventions proved insufficient to curb the rapid degeneration, forcing him to seek increasingly desperate surgical solutions. In 2008, he underwent an innovative and controversial procedure known as the resurfacing procedure on both knees. This highly invasive surgery involved drilling microfracture holes into the underlying bone to stimulate the growth of new fibrocartilage. The process demanded a lengthy, isolated, and incredibly difficult rehabilitation period. Despite a brief and emotionally charged return, the pain and mechanical issues persisted. The constant struggle with chronic knee degeneration, a condition more typical of much older athletes, meant he could never sustain fitness or consistent performance. His contract with Manchester United was terminated in 2011, and although he attempted a brief, emotional comeback at rivals Manchester City, the insurmountable injury barrier effectively ended the career of a supremely talented midfielder well before his time. Cristiano Ronaldo sustained a significant knee injury during the final of Euro 2016, an event that led to one of the most iconic images of his career. Early in the high-stakes match between Portugal and hosts France, a collision with midfielder Dimitri Payet resulted in a tear to his medial collateral ligament in his left knee. Unlike an ACL rupture, which typically involves complete joint instability requiring complex surgical reconstruction and a prolonged, uncertain recovery, an MCL tear is generally treated conservatively with bracing, structured rest, and intensive physical therapy. This non-surgical approach offered a much higher prognosis for a complete return to peak physical fitness. Ronaldo attempted to play through the searing pain, but was ultimately substituted in tears after only 25 minutes, though he famously returned to passionately coach his team from the sideline, helping to guide Portugal to their historic victory. The injury required a significant post-tournament layoff, sidelining him for nearly 2 months. While it was a major ligament trauma, the nature of the MCL tear allowed him to resume his career at the highest level without the chronic structural instability that defined the long-term struggles of many athletes suffering full ACL ruptures, thus preserving his extraordinary athleticism. Virgil van Dijk's anterior cruciate ligament rupture stands as a textbook example of the most feared single trauma in modern football. The severe injury occurred on October 17th, 2020, during the Merseyside derby against Everton, following a heavy reckless challenge from goalkeeper Jordan Pickford. The impact caused Van Dijk to sustain a complete Grade 3 tear of the ACL in his right knee, immediately sidelining the dominant defender. Further assessment revealed damage that extended beyond just the ACL itself. ACL tears necessitate reconstructive surgery, which involves replacing the torn ligament with a graft, followed by an exacting, lengthy rehabilitation program. For an athlete of Van Dijk's physical stature, the recovery was initially projected at 9 to 12 months to successfully restore the necessary strength, stability, and rotational control in the joint. He ultimately missed a total of 255 days and 57 matches, missing the vast majority of the 2020-21 season. His absence was keenly felt, derailing Liverpool's Premier League title defence. His injury highlighted the massive physical and psychological toll of ACL reconstruction, demanding immense discipline and resilience to return, which he successfully achieved for the start of the 2021-2022 season, reclaiming his status as one of the world's best defenders. Sami Khedira. The story of Sami Khedira's devastating knee injury occurred on November 15, 2013, during a friendly match between Germany and Italy. Midfielder Khedira, a stalwart for both the national side and Real Madrid, went down midway through the second half, following a collision with Italian veteran Andrea Pirlo. The immediate reaction among the German squad was one of deep concern, as Khedira was unable to continue and had to be helped off the pitch. Scans soon confirmed the worst possible diagnosis for a footballer, a torn anterior cruciate ligament in his right knee, which also involved damage to his medial ligament. This catastrophic injury demanded immediate surgical intervention, performed by Dr. Ulrich Böhnisch shortly after the incident. The timeline for recovery was estimated at a brutal 6 months, throwing the German star's participation in the upcoming 2014 World Cup in doubt. Coach Joachim Löw expressed publicly that the setback was bitter, but maintained faith in Khedira's positive attitude and fighting spirit. The midfielder dedicated himself to a grueling rehabilitation process, recovering just in time to be named in Germany's World Cup squad and ultimately contributing to their victory. Dean Ashton. Dean Ashton's highly promising career as a potent, all-around striker was tragically and prematurely ended at the age of 26 by a single, catastrophic ankle injury. The life-altering incident occurred in August 2006, while Ashton was training with the England national squad, just days before he was scheduled to earn his first full international cap. In a completely innocuous challenge, a tackle from teammate Sean Wright-Phillips resulted in a severe fracture and compound dislocation of Ashton's left ankle, accompanied by significant ligament damage. The trauma was immense and immediate. Despite undergoing numerous complex surgeries and enduring exhaustive rehabilitation efforts over the subsequent 3 years, Ashton could never overcome the resulting chronic pain, severe swelling, and persistent nerve damage that the initial trauma inflicted. The ankle joint never fully recovered its pre-injury mobility or stability, making it impossible for him to compete consistently or effectively at the elite Premier League level. The relentless physical struggle forced Ashton to announce his premature retirement in December 2009. His story remains a heartbreaking example of a non-malicious training ground incident, instantly extinguishing a top-flight career and robbing both West Ham United and the England national team of a future star striker. Radamel Falcao. The anterior cruciate ligament rupture suffered by Radamel Falcao was a devastating blow to his career and, crucially, cost him his chance to play in the 2014 FIFA World Cup. The injury occurred on January 22, 2014, while playing for AS Monaco in a French Cup match against a fourth-tier amateur side, Chasselet Montdor Azexis. Falcao, then at the height of his prime, was tackled by defender Soner Ertek inside the penalty area, resulting in a tear to the ACL in his left knee. The injury required immediate surgery, which was performed by specialist Dr. José Carlos Noronha. With the 2014 World Cup in Brazil less than 5 months away, Falcao embarked on an intense and desperate recovery effort. Despite his determined push, including utilising a hyperbaric chamber, the typical 6 to 9 month recovery period for an ACL tear proved too long. He was formally ruled out in June, a decision his national coach called the saddest day. Falcao's absence was a massive loss for Colombia, who had been heavily reliant on their talisman, and is widely seen as the beginning of a decline that led to disappointing loan spells at Manchester United and Chelsea. Alan Smith. Alan Smith's promising Manchester United career was tragically and abruptly cut short by a horrific, high-impact injury sustained on February 18, 2006, during an intense FA Cup match against bitter rivals, Liverpool. While demonstrating characteristic bravery, he attempted to block a powerful free kick delivered by John Arne Rees. Smith landed in a disastrous manner, immediately sustaining a severe compound fracture and a complete dislocation of his left ankle. The injury was visibly gruesome, causing visible shock among players and medical personnel alike. This severe trauma required immediate and complex surgical fixation, utilising plates and screws to painstakingly realign the shattered bones and stabilise the compromised joint structure. Such a grave injury necessitates an immensely prolonged and arduous recovery process. Smith faced not only the physical challenge of reconstruction, but also the deep psychological hurdle of overcoming the fear of re-injury. Though he exhibited tremendous determination to return to action, he never fully regained the crucial explosiveness, necessary mobility, or competitive confidence required to consistently perform at the elite level, especially following his transition into a midfield role. This permanent physical alteration definitively limited the ceiling of his professional career, prompting his eventual move away from United and forever changing his path in football. Santi Cazorla. Santi Cazorla's battle with an Achilles tendon rupture transformed from a standard, if severe, sports injury into a life-threatening medical ordeal. The initial rupture led to numerous corrective surgeries, but the real crisis began when a recurring infection took hold. This infection, coupled with a titanium wire inserted during a previous operation, started to aggressively eat away at his tissue. The infection was so severe that doctors warned Cazorla about the risk of amputation due to potential spreading or irreparable bone damage. Over the span of 4 years, he underwent approximately 10 complex surgical procedures aimed at clearing the infection and attempting to reconstruct the damaged area. At its worst, the infection had destroyed a segment of his Achilles tendon, measuring between 8 and 10 centimetres, along with parts of his heel bone. To bridge this substantial tissue deficit, doctors performed an unprecedented procedure, using a skin graft taken from his forearm, a graft notable for including his tattoo, to cover the wound. His eventual return to professional football was hailed as one of the most miraculous comebacks in the sport's history. Abou Diaby's career is the defining case study of an injury cascade, where a single, catastrophic trauma triggers a decade of subsequent compounding issues. The initial, career-altering injury occurred in May 2006, when a reckless tackle by Sunderland's Dan Smith resulted in a horrific, fractured ankle and severe ligament damage. This initial trauma left the ankle joint permanently unstable, despite rigorous surgical fixation. The core problem was that the body's attempt to stabilise the damaged ankle joint led to improper loading and movement patterns during intense physical activity. This biomechanical flaw caused surrounding muscle groups, including the hamstrings, calves, and surrounding knee ligaments, to be perpetually overworked and overstressed as they compensated for the ankle's inhibited movement. This structural imbalance resulted in an infamous run of 42 non-contact muscular injuries over the subsequent years. Diaby spent more time in rehabilitation than on the pitch, preventing him from ever achieving consistent fitness or fulfilling his immense potential, ultimately forcing him into a heartbreakingly premature retirement. David Beckham. David Beckham's career was marked by 2 highly publicised injuries. Neither caused the chronic degradation seen in others, but both created intense national drama due to their timing. The first, and perhaps most famous injury, occurred on April 10th, 2002, during a Champions League match for Manchester United against Deportivo La Coruña. Following a tackle, Beckham suffered a clean break to the second metatarsal bone in his left foot. Clinically, this type of fracture is usually straightforward, healing fully over a defined period without causing long-term consequences. However, the timing generated intense national drama. The injury happened just weeks before the 2002 FIFA World Cup. Beckham's desperate race against time to regain fitness became front-page news, transforming a common sporting injury into a cultural phenomenon. Despite the intense public spotlight, Beckham recovered sufficiently to captain and feature in the tournament, and the injury ultimately healed completely, posing no permanent career obstacle. 8 years later, Beckham suffered a more severe injury, a standard non-contact Achilles tendon rupture on March 14, 2010, while playing for AC Milan. The Achilles is the powerful cord connecting the calf to the heel, and its rupture required surgical repair, necessitating a long recovery period of 6 to 9 months. The injury was notable for sidelining him just before the 2010 FIFA World Cup, ending his final chance to compete in the tournament. While a standard Achilles rupture frequently results in a measurable, permanent loss of explosive power, for a player like Beckham, who relied heavily on range of passing and set-piece delivery rather than explosive pace, the impact was less career-altering, allowing him to resume his career for its final, less mobile years. Wayne Rooney. Wayne Rooney's metatarsal fracture in April 2006 became highly documented due to its timing, mirroring David Beckham's similar fracture 4 years earlier. Rooney suffered a break to the 5th metatarsal, the long bone on the outside of the foot, while playing for Manchester United. This specific fracture, particularly when it occurs near the base, known as a Jones fracture, can sometimes be complicated by poor blood supply, increasing the risk of non-union or delayed healing. For Rooney, surgical fixation often involving a screw inserted into the bone, was required to ensure stability and accelerate healing to meet the highly contentious timeline for the 2006 FIFA World Cup. Metatarsal injuries are highly disruptive because the small bones of the foot are crucial for the stability and powerful propulsion required to plant the foot, change direction, and strike the ball with force. Although he recovered just in time to feature in the tournament, the intense race against the clock highlighted the disruptive nature of even a seemingly simple bone break when it affects the critical biomechanics of an elite athlete's foot. Michael Owen. Michael Owen's career trajectory was fundamentally defined and ultimately curtailed, not by a single catastrophic event, but by the debilitating chronic recurrence of hamstring strains. Starting early in his tenure at Liverpool, these muscle injuries became increasingly frequent due to the sheer explosive demands of his unique high-speed running style, the same blistering pace that was his greatest weapon and helped him win the Ballon d'Or. Each recurring strain eroded his confidence and, more importantly, reduced his speed capacity. While hamstring injuries typically heal, the repeated micro-trauma led to internal scarring and a constant loss of elasticity in the muscle tissue. This constant battle meant Owen could no longer unleash his maximum speed without fear of immediate re-injury. This chronic condition limited his availability, hampered his explosive acceleration off the mark, and significantly affected his performance and market value, contributing to underwhelming spells at top clubs like Real Madrid and later Manchester United. This relentless cycle of damage and repair transformed him from a blistering, pace-based striker into a player who had to constantly manage his workload and adapt his game, sadly shortening the period of his elite performance and denying fans the chance to witness his full potential realised. Ledley King. Ledley King represents one of the most remarkable and unique cases of career management in football history, defined by a chronic, non-repairable condition involving severe cartilage loss in his knee. The advanced degenerative changes meant that his knee joint lacked necessary cushioning, leading to constant pain and rapid inflammation after physical exertion. Crucially, the damage was considered so extensive that regular high-impact training was impossible. The intensity would cause the joint to immediately swell. As a result, King famously adhered to a regime of not training with the main squad throughout the week. His preparation consisted almost entirely of specialised, non-weight-bearing gym work and physical therapy, allowing him to mitigate swelling and be fit enough to play only on match day. Despite this extraordinary limitation, a regimen unheard of for a modern professional, his innate reading of the game, sheer physical presence, and defensive intelligence remained so high that he was universally considered a world-class defender and a stalwart for Tottenham Hotspur. His career, though severely limited by minutes and availability, remains an incredible testament to pure rare talent triumphing over a crippling chronic injury. Djibril Cisse. Djibril Cisse's career was marred by two famous, career-threatening leg breaks, but his second, sustained in June 2006 during a warm-up match for the French national team, was clinically the most complex. The injury was a fracture of the tibial plateau, the critical weight-bearing surface at the top of the shin bone that forms part of the knee joint. Unlike a clean break in the shaft of a long bone, a joint surface fracture is highly complex because it requires perfect realignment of the articulating cartilage. Imprecise fixation leads inevitably to debilitating post-traumatic arthritis. This severe injury demanded a lengthy, highly technical surgical reconstruction to restore the intricate topography of the joint. Recovery was agonising, as the primary fracture healing process was followed by the slow, painful work of regaining full knee mobility, while Cisse miraculously returned to the pitch and continued playing professionally. The sheer complexity and high-impact nature of the injury meant his joint health was compromised forever, preventing a full return to his peak mobility and explosive athleticism. Petr Cech. Petr Cech endured one of the most life-threatening injuries in football on October 14, 2006, during a Premier League match for Chelsea against Reading. In the opening minute, he collided violently with midfielder Stephen Hunt's knee, resulting in a depressed skull fracture. This was an immediate medical emergency requiring life-saving surgery to repair the fracture and relieve pressure on the brain. The physical risk was immense, and recovery was highly complex, focusing first on survival and then on gradual neurological rehabilitation. Miraculously, Cech returned to competitive football just 3 months later, in January 2007. His subsequent career was defined by the mandatory use of a specially designed protective headguard, a visible reminder of the extreme trauma. Crucially, he suffered no discernible long-term loss of technical ability, maintaining his status as a world-class goalkeeper for over a decade. Cech's injury and comeback stand as a testament to modern medicine and his extraordinary courage, demonstrating a near-full recovery from a potentially fatal incident. Marco Reus. Marco Reus's career has been perpetually overshadowed by the consistent, ill-timed recurrence of ankle and knee ligament damage, defining him as one of the sport's most talented yet physically unlucky players. His injuries are characterised by chronic instability in key joints, leading to repeated strains and tears of the ankle and knee collateral ligaments. While these individual soft tissue injuries are typically treatable, the pattern of recurrence speaks to an underlying structural susceptibility, possibly linked to gait issues or hypermobility. The most devastating aspect of Reus's injury history is the timing. His most severe and disruptive setbacks consistently occurred immediately before major international tournaments, most famously robbing him of the opportunity to participate in Germany's victorious 2014 FIFA World Cup campaign. This persistent cycle of injury and recovery has extracted a high psychological toll, creating a constant fear of breakdown and preventing him from ever establishing the sustained rhythm required to dominate at the highest levels of global football. Jan Vertonghen. Jan Vertonghen's concussion incident in the 2019 Champions League semi-final provided a high-profile demonstration of the dangers of traumatic brain injury in football. Following an aerial head collision, Vertonghen immediately showed clear signs of neurological distress, including a brief period where he appeared unstable and disoriented. Worryingly, he initially returned to the pitch, but quickly exhibited more severe symptoms, notably vomiting, before having to be helped off the field by medical staff. The incident sparked widespread debate regarding pitch-side concussion protocols, highlighting the severe risk of continuing to play after a potential TBI. While the injury did not involve structural bone damage like a skull fracture, a concussion is a functional injury to the brain itself. The incident was concerning because repeated or poorly managed concussions carry long-term risks for neurodegenerative diseases. His full recovery required careful monitoring and adherence to return-to-play guidelines, demonstrating the increasing recognition of brain health as a critical yet structurally invisible sporting injury.